Hello everyone. In the last video we used the module scaffolder to generate a news module. I said I was going to go further on that module right now, but I think it would be best if we could apply the module generation on a real-life example. So for instance, we are going to generate a module for the AsgardCms website itself. What I would like to do is create a testimonials module. Multiple people have already commented in Slack channel nice comments, and I would like to have them all together in this testimonial module. So we're going to build that together, and that module will probably be open sourced afterwards. Alright, so as you can see, I have my local installation of AsgardCms.com website. There's nothing special here, just the local installation of it. Alright, so now I'm going to go into PHP Storm. As you can see, I have my project open. We are going to create a new branch to develop our module on. So let's go ahead and create a feature branch called testimonial module. Alright, so now we are on a clean branch to start this development. Let's use the module scaffolder to generate the basic views and repositories of our module. So for that, we saw that in the previous videos, is PHP artisan asgard module scaffold. So for our vendor name, we're going to use AsgardCms. The module name is testimonials. We're going to use Eloquent. We are going to need only one entity, that's testimonial. That's only one, no value objects. Okay, let's do this. As you can see, the module is generated. So now we're going to set up the permissions so that we can actually see the module on the backend here. If we refresh here, we can see it here, but we don't have access to it. There's nothing there. So let's see our permissions configuration file. As you can see, this is the module name and the entity name. So we're going to need the basic root. That's all we're going to need, so we can remove that. Let's also not forget to ignore our testimonial module. Okay. Remove that. So right now, if we go into Chrome again, if we go into the roles, the administration role, we will be able to see our testimonial module right here. I'm going to select everything and update. So now I have access to go into this module and see the testimonial link. As you can see, there's nothing here yet, it's just the basic views. Also, if you go into the create view, it's just empty now where we need to add our fields. So let's go back into PHP Storm. So now that the permissions are set up correctly, by the way, this was generated automatically, so you don't have to do this manually every time. But if you need to, just remember that this is the module name, this is the entity name. Also, if you go into the URI, you can see this is the module name and the entity name. This is important to remember also. This is what is used to check if we have permission to this URI. Alright, so next thing we need to do is, just for demonstration, I'm going to show you what the sidebar extender generated. So this is new in the latest version. It was previously a view composer, now it's just a class that extends the sidebar package. So as you can see here, we add our module to the sidebar content area. So if you go into Chrome, so we have here a content title, and the testimonial is added there. And we have our main item, and here we can see the route to the index. That's pretty much all there is to it. So now we're going to set up our migration if we go into the migrations folder, we can see it created 2 migrations, one for the base table and one for the translations table. We are not going to need anything translated in here, so we can just remove the translations migration and go into the general migration here. So the field that we're going to need is pretty simple. It's just a string for the author name. So we're going to call that name. Another field called author text. That's going to be the contents of the testimonial. Next, we'll add the URL to the author, so the string URL. So that these are our basic fields that we're going to use for our testimonial module. Nothing very complicated, pretty easy here. The DOM is already set up. Note that the migrations are all prefixed with the module name so that there are as few as possible conflicts in the database. Alright, so this is ready to go. We can migrate this. So to migrate our module, we're going to use PHP artisan module column migrate and then our module name testimonials. Alright, so our table is now up to date. If we go into SQL Pro, right, so you can see our testimonials with the required fields. Nothing too complicated until now. So our migrations are set up. What we now need is add these fields to the admin. So if we go into here, the administration testimonials, we need to add the fields, one on the column here, and also on the create field, create views, and the edit views. So let's start with the index. To edit the view, we go into the resource folder, the views folder, admin index. We can see the basic columns that were added here. The created at and the actions column. So let's add a new column called ID, a new one for the author name, so we're going to call this author name. Maybe just the first couple of content of the testimonial is going to call this content, but we're not going to show everything in the column. Alright, so we can just copy this, paste it on the bottom line. As you can see, there is a bottom line here, so that's what we need to create. Alright, that's it. Also important, we need to set up, if you refresh now, the table will be a little bit messed up. Well, anyway, not yet since there isn't any content, but we need to create the columns inside as well, but we're going to do that a little bit later. Alright, so let's create first the... I like to create links on every column, so we can click on I can show you there, you can click on every content table cell. So our first column was the ID. Afterwards we have our name. Oh, I didn't paste the right thing here. Let's copy this. So we have our name and the content, but not everything of the content. Let's just limit this to the default of 100, this code, I guess. Maybe make it 150. We'll see, we'll tweak this later on. Alright, so the index view is set up. We have our columns. So what we need to do now is create our fields. So let's go into our show create fields. As you can see, we have this set up here. Let's use as an example the blocks module. Alright, so you can see on the bug module we use a form macro to not every time repeat the same thing. So we're going to use that as well. We don't need the I18N here, the internationalization prefix, because our content will not be translatable. So I can just copy our text area, for instance. I'm not going to call this like that. Just to make sure that the name, if you don't know which name to use, you can go into the core module, the macros file, and here you'll see everyone. So the input, the text area, the checkbox. Here we have our standard fields, so the fields that won't be translatable. So we're going to need the normal input one and the text area one. So let's copy that, paste that here. The field name will be content, the name will be content, and we don't need the language, as you can see. That's it. Also, we're going to need the normal input for our author name. So let's call this name, that's it, just to make sure. If you forget, always go into the macros folder to see, okay, the name is correct and the arguments are correct. So that's the name. We also need a URI. Okay, so you just copy the input. Let's maybe add it right after here and call that URI, URL. Okay. So now if we go into the create fields of our testimonial, we can see we have a name, a URL, and a content. That's basically our three fields that we are going to need. Alright, so that's good. I can close the macros file. We need to do the same thing for the edit fields. So let's copy this, or copy the inside, paste our fields, but we're going to use the object as a float argument here. So we're going to use testimonial. Paste that. Right. Now we need to, before we can create actual content, this won't work since our fields are fillable. So we need to go into our entity. That's in the entities folder. We can remove the translations entity. Just go into our testimonials. We're not going to use a translatable trait. We can remove that. That's okay. We don't need that. Okay, so for the fillable field, this is just usual Laravel stuff. So we're going to make our name, our URL, and the content fillable. Alright, so now we can already create stuff. If, for instance, we go here, let's just refresh to make sure. I'm going to use John Doe. And my awesome content. Let's create this. Alright, so our testimonial is created. Let's check in the database if everything is correct. If we refresh, we can see the content. Now, let's just check the repository. Okay, I'm going to shut down the cache just so we are not annoyed by that. Okay, cache is false, that's good. We need to go into the controller. So into the HTTP folder, the controller, the admin on the index view, like we saw last time, we need to uncomment this and call the testimonials variable here. So now that our view will be using the correct data. Alright, so when you create a model that isn't translatable, by default, when you call the all method or the find method on the repository, you will have this error. To fix this is because we have by default a translations relation on the entity. But since our entity now isn't translatable, we don't need that, so we need to override the repository method accordingly. So let's go into our repository method, use the override method. We need to override it all and find. So just so you can see, if we go into the base repository, you see this is what causes the error. So we can just copy this, paste, and remove the width. Same thing for, this is all. Same thing for our find method. So we go into the find, we can use that, paste, and remove the relation. Now if we go into our index view again, you can see we have the required line. We can fix it later, it's not too concerned about that. So our repository is done, controller here is okay. What we need now is be able to edit our testimonial. Of course, if we done it correctly, it already works. Why is that? Because on our edit fields, we already pasted our fields and set up the fourth argument to set up the testimonial. So now if we edit this, we can update the testimonial and see the edited content right there. Alright, so that's pretty much all there is to it, is to create the backend of our testimonial module. Let's just go over it one more time. On our testimonial controller, you can see the index method. It calls the all method on the repository. We have our create view that was created by default. What we could do is set up a form request to make these fields required. So now if we create a empty testimonial, it will work. We can maybe create a form request just to show you how it goes. So let's create a create testimonial request class. We make it extend the Laravel form request class. I have a snippet here that's already set up to set up our rules. So we're going to make the name required, the URL also required, and the content also required. So back in our controller, we now need to inject that class. So we created create testimonial request, update our dot block. Alright, so if you now go into Chrome again, refresh the page just to make sure, create, we have our error messages. That's good. Let's do the same for the update testimonial request. So I'm going to copy paste this, call this update testimonial, rename the class. I like to create two form requests, even if the rules are the same, just so that readability is easier. So if you go into our controller here, you can see this create method, create class, and here we're going to use the update testimonial request. Update our doc blocks, and now even the edit form already has that. So now if you type B, I'm going to back to the index. Let's edit this, remove the name, update, and we have our error. Let's go back. That's about the form request, so that's pretty easy, standard Laravel stuff. As you can see here, we use route model binding so that we can inject the testimonial directly. We set up a flash message. The story is also set up. That's it pretty much. Now that we have everything for the backend, let's go over how to set up the front end of the testimonials.